Welcome to another edition of Hollywood Hoops Laid Back Reaction. I'm Josh Martin of Lonzo Wire. He's Eric Pincus of Basketball Insiders and Bleacher Report. And today's episode is brought to you, as always, by our friends at High Five. High Five makes meetings awesome with insanely simple video conferencing designed for your meeting rooms. It's the easiest to use solution thanks to their all-in-one hardware and intuitive cloud software. Plus, it's a high-quality experience with industry-leading audio powered by Dolby Voice. It's so easy to use that there's no PIN codes or app downloads. Just click a link in your browser and you're in the meeting. Even the least techie person at your company can figure it out.
With customers in over 100 countries, High Five is already trusted by the likes of Warby Parker, Harry's, Betterment, and the Girl Scouts of Northern California. To learn more and start your 30-day free trial of insanely simple video conferencing, visit highfive.com. That's highfive.com. Josh, terrible news last night. We're recording this on Saturday, and Boogie went down. What happened?
Yeah, so there was a non-contact situation. Boogie and Anthony Davis, obviously pairing for the New Orleans Pelicans, were playing against the Houston Rockets, and Boogie pulled up lame. There was no collision, no nothing. It's a sight that certainly Lakers fans are all too familiar with from Kobe Bryant, a few years back in 2013 when he tore his Achilles. Turns out that DeMarcus Cousins also tore his Achilles. He's having surgery. He'll be out between 6 to 10 months, it looks like. So that's the end of his season with the Pelicans. That could be the end of the Pelicans season if you think about New Orleans' chances in the playoffs. So there's a lot of interesting implications here that we'll get to as far as the Lakers and Clippers are concerned. But let's start here, Eric, with the All-Star situation, because Boogie was voted in as a starter. He was going to be a starter on LeBron James's team against Team Steph Curry. So now the league is in a situation where it's going to have to pick a replacement. Adam Silver, the commissioner, will probably be in charge of that. And you figure he's going to have to pick someone from the Western Conference. So who in your mind do you think Adam Silver goes for first to replace Boogie?
Well, like I said, we're going to talk about the Lakers later. This is probably where it impacts the Clippers the most because now they have a shot of getting an all-star in. Maybe Blake Griffin, although he missed a lot of the season with some injury, although they're playing pretty well. Lou Williams has been playing absolutely out of his mind, would be deserving of a spot, and I know that would be great for the home team. Remember, the game is at Staples Center, so if Adam Silver wants to sort of cater to the home crowd, maybe one of those two guys. If he takes that out of consideration, it's hard to argue against Chris Paul. Yes, he was injured, and he's missed a chunk of the season. Last year, Carmelo Anthony was an injury replacement. And I don't know if Carmelo Anthony had the best season last year and was the most worthy, but it was sort of a name recognition thing. They went kind of, it's the career achievement award type thing. And the Thunder, rather the Rockets, rather, are among the best teams in the league. And that's not because of James Harden only. That's because of Chris Paul. In fact, when those two play together, along with Clint Capella, they're basically undefeated. So I think Chris Paul, we can, of course, talk about the Thunder and Paul George. That is another possibility, and he would be absolutely fine. Adam Silver going with Paul George. You can argue at least he's a forward. You could argue he's a front court player, and so that matches up to positionally where I know Boogie's a center, but they don't break it down that way anymore. And so that these are the options. If I were to handicap it, I might go Chris Paul, George, then maybe Blake, and then Lou, simply because Blake has more of a star stature. Mm-hmm. If you go by who deserves it most, I know Clipper fans are going to say Lou.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. Lou had 40 points off the bench for the Clippers against the Memphis Grizzlies in a win for the Clippers on Friday night. So I think he's sort of stating his case. He'll be in the All-Star Skills competition on Saturday night, and he had a little tweet that Steve Ballmer seemed to enjoy where he said, "I'm also available to play Sunday in the All-Star games." So we'll see what happens there. But I think beyond the All-Star game now, there's some interesting implications with Boogie down. I think it opens up potentially a playoff spot in the Western Conference in the lower tier, one that the Clippers certainly will have a shot at, one that the Lakers will have an outside shot at now that they've won 4 in a row without Lonzo Ball. But beyond the playoff implications for this season. Now we're going into free agency next summer. I think that's where all the Laker fans were most interested when it comes to Boogie, is to see if he would be an option for them in free agency to be that next great big man to man the middle for the Lakers. And you wonder now, Eric, what does this mean for the Lakers' pursuit or potential pursuit of DeMarcus Cousins if he's coming off an Achilles injury? Certainly if there's any organization in the league that understands how devastating that sort of injury can be to a superstar level talent, it's the Lakers. So do you see the Lakers still making a play for Boogie? If they do they maybe offer him a reduced deal or some sort of incentive-laden contract? How does this situation break down in your mind now?
Well, I mean, historically, of course, Kobe came back relatively quickly, I think 7-8 months after his surgery, but he was never quite the same, and then it led to other injuries, had a knee injury, and just really him tearing his Achilles, Kobe, in the game against the Warriors was really the end of his greatness. I mean, you could talk about his last game, which was a blast, but really his high impact. That was a playoff team that year. After that, the Lakers were nothing as far as playoffs. So then we talk about, let's say, Wesley Matthews, who was someone who got paid well by the Dallas Mavericks coming off an Achilles tear. So they paid him anyway, even though he wasn't fully healed. He didn't get a max deal, but he got a large contract. Mm-hmm. I think Boogie is looking at a large deal as well. The question is, are the Lakers the team to give it to him? Do they want to risk something like that on a guy who may or may not be the same? Especially because this window of opportunity for the Lakers, something they've been building for years and years, trying to get to this max position where they can get 2 max stars and hopefully land them this year. That's their hope. If you've got, let's say, LeBron James is number 1 on your list, I'm thinking Lakers. I mean, some might disagree, but if the Lakers believe that, and if they can get Paul George and get those two together, they'd have to figure out their center position. But really, at that point, you make it work. I think Cousins sort of drops down that list. But if you go, and who else is there? I mean, there's DeAndre Jordan. Certainly, you can argue he's a better fit defensively. He's not as good a fit offensively because, he is a helpful offensive player. And I could see him catching lobs from Lonzo Ball, but he may stay with the Clippers, or they may trade him at the deadline. So there's a lot of uncertainty with DeAndre. But go down the list. I mean, Chris Paul and Kevin Durant, technically free agents. I think most people expect them to re-sign with the Warriors and the Rockets. And let's see who else is out there. Avery Bradley. Now we're starting to go down the list. Mm-hmm. Josh, I might be missing a few other semi-big names. Isaiah Thomas. There are players out there, but I don't know if there's anybody quite at the caliber of a DeMarcus when healthy, a LeBron, and a Paul George. And so that's where the Lakers are. Who do they go and get? Do they use their cap space instead for trades? Do they get 1 max star and keep some of their young guys? Can they get 1 max star if they're not getting 2? Does LeBron come? If he's not coming with another vet, does Paul George come? If there's no LeBron, or is it to be the leader of a young team? All these are factors we don't know, but it just changed the game table because now DeMarcus Cousins, if there was so many questions as to who he was as a leader and whether he was the right guy anyway, now he's coming off injury, a significant one. You have to think the brakes are on that at least a little bit.
Yeah, it really changes the permutations that you figure the Lakers are going to take into serious consideration going into the summer. I know we had James Worthy on the podcast recently, and he was talking about how his ideal pairing would be Paul George and DeMarcus Cousins to bring into the Lakers. You got to think that's a little changed in his mind now. And maybe now we go back to that other plan that we had discussed on the podcast some moons ago about the Lakers going after 2 max guys and then maybe trying to convince Brook Lopez to come back for the room exception or whatever the Lakers can offer. A minimal deal when you think about a guy like Brook as far as what he's been making, but if it's in the $4 to $5 million range and he's willing to take less to play with a contender, then you can still have a quality big man, maybe not of the same caliber that you were hoping for, but at least you have a big body who's skilled offensively and can provide some resistance defensively against your other unicorns in the league, whether it's Joel Embiid, Kristaps Porzingis, Anthony Davis, guys like that. But it really adds some intrigue to the situation. It's certainly unfortunate for DeMarcus. It's very unfortunate for the Pelicans, who I think were banking on having a healthy Boogie to be competitive and to be able to convince Anthony Davis to stick around long term. We'll see how that goes, but we'll see how it works out for the Pelicans, how it works out for the Lakers and Clippers. But for now, we're going to wrap it up here on this edition of Hollywood Hoops, Laid Back Reaction, presented as always by High Five. I'm Josh Martin of Lonzo Wire. He's Eric Pincus of Basketball Insiders and Bleacher Report. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll be back with you again soon.